It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, how are we feeling on this glorious?
No, this is Dave Pettigrew from Cleveland, Ohio.
What? Why?
I think
if we can be different people,
I think all pizza is good. There's really no difference between good pizza and bad pizza. Ohio is the best state. You should always bunt in baseball. Yeah.
For a while there, you were basically just doing the reverse of your Twitter bio until you said the bunt.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like if today was the day that we were just going to outright lie about things, I was just going to go for it. I was just going to come up here and say stuff that isn't even remotely true.
All right. Okay. I got it. Now, I was wondering what this bit was on, to be honest, because I had no clue that was coming like anybody else watching or listening to this right now, but I got you. All right. So it's Tomlin Tuesday. We're going to talk about Mike Tomlin. This carries over actually from his post-game presser, but into today, he's maintaining the same stance on this George Pickens thing, and I got to appreciate it.
He kind of let the cat out of the bag at the end, right? Like, I mean, it's sort of what we talked about. Like, he said that, he was asked, first of all, of course, like many times about Pickens, they said, he's not being punished. It's not, and then he said, and then he was asked, like, does him not running hard, have you noticed that? And, he's like, yeah. And he was like, hey, is that part of this? He goes, yeah. And so, like, come on, Mike, like, just tell us what you're really saying. Like, this is like me on my, beer league hockey team being like, if you're not going to freaking play hard, come off and I'll go on. Like that's like that's all this is, right? This is like, you must really be tired because you're looking real slow out there. Let's cut your reps down a little bit. Like, come on. I don't, whatever. I mean, it doesn't really matter if he doesn't want to. In fact, he said that he does not address like punitive things publicly. And again, Smitty, I feel like I hear myself admitting this too often on this show, but like, I wish I would have asked him two more questions. And like, would you have told us even if you did bench him? Like, I think would be a very interesting question. And the second one is there anything he can do to get his reps back? Which I'm sure there is a yes to that question, right?
Yeah.
So like, I just, I don't want to make too much of this. We already had a kind of a whole show about it yesterday. Right. But like,
we have a question that kind of, I think this is an interesting angle that the question goes as well. I mean, do you want to get to that now and just tie it in?
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So this is from Benjamin, and this actually, Benjamin, I believe this is the person. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Benjamin. You're a regular commenter now, so you'll be able to tell us if this isn't the case. But I believe that this is recently found us on here. Maybe he came from Spotify. I think that's wrong. Okay. Well, basically, I mean, he left a very long comment. He started it off well, saying that he considers us and Locked On with Chris Carter the two must-listen podcasts or must-watch podcasts, depending on what you're doing, if you're on YouTube or on a listening platform, out of his rotation. So we appreciate that. The last comment that he left was from Morning Rush, but I pulled it for an afternoon drive question, and he only mentioned your name. So this time he had to mention me by name. He said, I got a question for Zach. We're both going to answer it, obviously, but I felt it was an interesting angle with the George Pickens thing because coming into the season, while we didn't say that George Pickens was the best player on the Steelers, when you look at the wide receiver depth chart, you could argue he was the most important. Like, if something happens to George, what in the world are we going to do at wide receiver? Well, Benjamin said, we thought that was the worst case scenario, but we somehow have now one-upped it because if George isn't buying in, where do you go with this? And it kind of, like you said, going from all angles here, like if George doesn't have the buy-in, if he's not going to be able to be on the field, if they are benching him, if you're not getting the most out of him when he is on the field and you don't have a way to change that, if this continues to be the case, or if they move him, whatever that the end result looks like, that is obviously something that I don't even know. Like, maybe we should have been thinking about, but it really didn't occur to me preseason when saying a George Pickens injury is the worst case scenario, because him not being involved might as well be like he is injured if this is what we're getting out of him.
It's honestly kind of worse, right? Because like he's still here. You're still gonna try to get him involved, and then you just like play the is George gonna actually try roulette. Like, it would be better for them maybe not better, but it would be easier to manage if he was just gone, right? Like if he was just out. Like I always say, like, coaches want, if you got the guy who is a 65% every time, coach will take that over alternating between 50 and 100. Like they don't want to deal with the up and down, and that's what you're getting from George right now. He had a great game against Indianapolis. I mean, he was not. If you go back and watch that tape, he was not running hard on all the routes. He has never really run hard on routes that he doesn't think are going to him. He doesn't really try on run plays. We talked about the mouthpiece thing where he kind of gives play about half the time with the way he approaches the line of scrimmage. But there was no big bad thing that happened between then and now, or at least it hasn't been reported that you just play the George wheel, the roulette wheel, and it came up double zeros on Sunday.
Yeah. Which obviously I think that it's a lot of this stuff that we've kind of already known. It's been a talking point in the past. I mean, like last year, like I said, we did an entire episode after the blocking thing against Indy. And, we were basically like, how do you even move forward with this player? How do you go in front of your teammates after that effort? And, I feel like it's, again, basically the same conversation being had again. They were able to, get past it at that point, and he's still on the team now. But it's just, I think those same questions arise yet again 1 year later.
Yeah. And the more often they come up, the less patience you have for it. And the other part of this is, I think sort of paradoxically, right? Like if you're just dealing with this problem as George Pickens, the thing to probably get him going is to probably dangle the carrot, right? And be like, oh, we'll give you a lot of touches. Like we'll give you the ball. But like, I think that's sort of a slap in the face to the rest of the locker room. If you take that approach, like, I think you can only go so far to try to mollify one player before you're going to risk losing the rest of them over it. And I feel that line pretty rapidly approaching for the Steelers and George Pickens. The things I've heard from players are not complimentary. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, we did an entire episode of this. I don't want to continue to regurgitate the same stuff, but obviously I fully agree. I appreciate Benjamin's perspective on this as well, and hopefully that we come to some resolution here, either getting him back on track, the buy-in, or if it does involve moving on, whatever that looks like. But that was one thing that came out of Tomlin Tuesday. I want to talk about some of the other things that came out of that. We jokingly, and well, not really jokingly, talked about it. Feels like every week in Tomlin Tuesday since about 2018, we've talked about the offense being more explosive, and yet he continues to bring it up. It continues to not happen. It was brought up again today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough because like they were not. Like they tried in this game. There's lots of guys running downfield. There's lots of routes out there. And it's not like it's one thing that's keeping them from doing it. Part of it is just they're not consistent enough as an offense. We talked about this, how like when you get to 2nd and 2, that's when you should want to try to take some deep shots. And they were really having a struggle on getting a first down from 2nd and 2, right? They're like having too many negative plays, too many plays get blown up for no gain. And so I think like the less consistent an offense it is, the harder it is to justify using one of your 3 downs to take some deep shot that they just in general have a low percentage of success, even with offenses that are good at it. Like even, like the Chiefs are not throwing long on 2nd and 10 very often, right? Like you have to stay in your down and distance to give yourself a chance to take shots. They're not doing a very good job of that. The second part is they're dropping them. And I don't think Fields is finding guys, and they're also not protecting him very well. Those plays take longer to develop. And like there's the one where he gets like decapitated in the 3rd quarter. Like there's 3 deep guys on that play. He just, didn't really have time, and then he leaves the pocket, then he comes back into the pocket. I just like there's like multiple failures happening there at the same time, right? Like, he wasn't very well protected. Then he made a poor decision. And so like, I just think it's not like there's a magic, hey, we need more big plays wand to wave. Big plays are made by offenses that are running well and smoothly, and this one clearly is not.
Yeah, like that's kind of one of the things that I thought they did pretty well in week 1, first half of week 2, to some degree in week 3, mainly in like the second half when they took this game over. Was you mentioned the down and distance. I think that's a big thing. It's like this to me isn't a team that's built to play behind the sticks like that. Like those plays aren't there to be made. I think that they want to take their calculated shots, obviously, but they want to do it after getting like a 6 or 7 yard run on first down where it makes sense for them to do so. So if you fall behind the markers on first down or you take pre-snap penalties like we saw a bunch of over the course of the last few weeks, like those are going to set them back. And I don't think that they're equipped offensively to make up for those.
Yeah. I think there's like you're going to give up plays. I mean, you're not going to keep every team down. I didn't think the defense was great against the Cowboys, but I just and you want to talk about the defense today too, so we can kind of transition to that next. But like, I just like you're gonna like just in the normal course of business, those plays should be happening in the NFL, and the fact that they're not, I think, is really a problem for the Steelers offense.
Yeah. Absolutely. Before we get to the defense, just want to kind of go over the injury roundup here because I got a call today and it was a number I didn't recognize, but it had a 412. So of course I answered it. I might be playing outside linebacker this week, upcoming week for the Steelers with what's going on. Injury wise, Alex Highsmith down, Nick Herbig down, the Marvin Leal down. We saw all these guys go down in the game, didn't know the severity of them, but they already rolled out on Tuesday, which isn't great. Obviously, and then a bunch of guys doubtful as well. Cordarrelle Patterson also is Cordarrelle Patterson the one that's out or Jaylen Warren the one that's out? One's out, one's doubtful already at this point.
Patterson's out. Michael Pruitt's out, I thought, or maybe doubtful. Okay. I don't know. None of those guys are going to play. Patterson,
doubtful's
Pruitt,
out.
Warren, the 3 outside linebackers, and Davante Casey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is awesome. So what do we do about outside linebacker? I mean, talk about Isaiah Loudermilk playing on the edge. Obviously, Jeremiah Moon, who I thought did not look very good in his snaps on Sunday. I mean, Nick Herbig leaving that game. I know that people realize that was a massive blow, but I don't think it can be understated how much that game changed when Nick Herbig went out of it.
Oh, the whole fourth quarter. I mean, and Watt's not healthy either. He was in the tent in the fourth quarter too.
Yeah,
I don't know what for, but he missed some time. I went back and watched that one rep of Isaiah Loudermilk playing outside linebacker. Let's just say it wasn't great.
It was one of the reps of all time. Yeah,
it was. I mean, it did get double teamed, which was a choice. Also, I think if the Cowboys had that one to do over, they would have said, "No, let's keep 2 guys on Hayward. One tackle can probably handle him." But I mean, like, there's nobody else. Mike was asked about Peyton Wilson and very flatly said no to that. So I'm not that I blame him. I think Wilson's been kind of hit or miss with his inside linebacker play, but it's bad, man. I mean, Jeremiah Moon's going to start, and you're talking about calling up 2 practice squad guys probably, and Eku Leota and Ade Ogundeji, which is bad news for the announcers and probably bad news for the Steelers defense. Like, I mean, I don't know these guys very well. They're both like practice squad guys that came from elsewhere. Eku just got here last week. I can't say they don't really get the opportunity to stand out in this setting. Like I don't know very much about them. But I don't have warm and fuzzies about them playing. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I would probably go make a call to try to get Kyron Johnson off of, is it the Giants practice squad that he's currently on? I believe he's on a practice squad somewhere, maybe the Lions, one of those 2 teams.
He's on the Titans.
Titans.
You were all around it with the blue, but yeah.
He's on the Titans practice squad, sorry. Obviously the familiarity that he has there and the whole reason that I feel like I thought he had a great preseason. I thought there was some redundancy with Nick Herbig, so I didn't know that it made sense to keep both of them anyway. Obviously we're keeping Nick Herbig. But now I think with how thin they are at edge, I think that would be something to circle back on as well.
Yeah, it's a good call. I wasn't thinking about that, but yeah, absolutely would want Kyron Johnson in here this week. Would kind of be, honestly, now that you mentioned it, surprised if that doesn't happen. I was kind of poking around just for like some other guys, maybe some name guys on some practice squads that like I thought might, be, or like some free agents.
Yeah.
But I didn't really come up with a lot.
Yeah.
It's not really, it wasn't really a group where I was like, oh, there's a handful of guys out there that'll be, like sort of easy pickings. Like it just wasn't like that. I was Yannick Ngakoue is on the Ravens practice squad. And like the idea of just stealing from the Ravens probably is appealing in general. But like I don't know what kind of shape he's in. He just got signed maybe a week or two ago. Wasn't a guy that was like with him. Kingsley Jonathan is on the Buffalo Bills. He like you remember he kind of stood out in that preseason game. Remember that, like that's like a thing the Steelers seem to do all the time is like when someone has a good preseason game against them, they kind of circle back to him. So like that name stood out to me for that reason. But
that's why if we need if we ever need a middle linebacker, and that kid from Buffalo becomes available, Andreessen or whatever.
Oh yeah, absolutely signing. Absolutely signing Joel. Like the Steelers are 100% eventually going to sign Joe Andreessen. Like that, just yes, that is absolutely correct. That's a good call. That's
one of the best preseason performances I've ever watched in my life by that kid.
Legitimately that good.
So we've been talking a lot about defense. I want to talk about the Steelers defense, third down struggles that they've had over the last 2 weeks. And quite frankly, even not on third down, the way that they looked against Dallas, they obviously got some splash plays within there, were able to take the football away. But so realistically, if you look at this game, it could have been a lot uglier against Dallas. They didn't have to be in it at the last second if Dallas, didn't kind of shoot themselves in the foot with these turnovers, because I understand that the Steelers were taking the ball away, but it also like just some brain dead moments from Dak Prescott on a couple of those as well, where he just took shots he really didn't have to and took away points. So really the only thing that stopped Dallas's offense on that night was Dallas's offense at times. So, I was kind of poking around trying to see what other people thought about this, but I want to ask you, what's like your panic meter on the Steelers defense? Like, are these injuries building up for that unit? Is it just communication stuff because you have some new pieces, obviously, in a new, signal caller and Patrick Queen on that side? Like, where are we at with this defense?
My overall panic level on the defense is basically none. They before Monday night they were 4th in scoring defense. I assume they still are, and I think they're like the players that are kind of struggling for me are guys that have long track records of playing well for the most part. Like I'm fairly confident that Patrick Queen is going to be a better player than he has been the first 5 weeks. I'm fairly confident that Minkah Fitzpatrick is going to have a greater impact than he's had in the first 5 weeks. The injuries are concerning, piling up at one spot as they are. But TJ looks great. Cam looks great. I think E-Rob looks awesome. What a play by him. Third down on the last drive of the game as well. And so I'm just not like Beanie's concerning. They'll get Cam Sutton back eventually. So like the eventual solution for that is there. There may be some struggles here over the next 3 or 4 more weeks.
Kind of buying
like
time.
That's coming. So like I don't have any big bad concerns about most of the defense. I just think it's communication, a couple of new guys and a couple of new pieces, and they'll figure it out.
Okay. I mean, you obviously mentioned about Peyton Wilson, and would you continue to play him as much as, or would you, see what if E-Rob can do more than what they've had him do so far this year? Obviously, E-Rob had to step into a greater role last year because of injuries. So like it was a question mark going into last year, but he was able to answer some of those questions, in my opinion. Should he be playing more than he has? Should Peyton Wilson be playing less? Or like, how do you balance kind of Peyton Wilson's growth along with not wanting to see him? I'm not saying he's sinking the defense with the way he's playing, but he's not been very good.
I think it's probably mostly just like matchup stuff. I think that's the way I would be approaching the linebacker position. It's a lot easier than Beanie, right? Because you have options there. Like you have, you can find ways to play them out so that you're putting guys in favorable positions. I think they're doing a pretty good job of that. there are going to be games that call for a lot more Peyton Wilson, and he's going to have to play well. And maybe if he's not, maybe in those games you could kind of be a little bit quicker to go back to E-Rob in some circumstances. I thought, was it the Colts game? The first drive on the Colts game, I thought like they were stuck in nickel and the Colts were running, and I was like, I'm trying to get Roberts in there. But like, there may be some teams that like to run out of 11. Maybe they would want to use a little bit more Roberts and nickel than they have been, but that's kind of the only thing I've got there in terms of the distribution. I just think this is a Steelers team that's relying on a lot of young guys, and in general, I feel like it's going to get better as the season goes on. It's true for Beanie. It's true for Peyton Wilson. It's true for guys like Patrick Queen who are new to this defense and in important positions in terms of, signal calling and things like that. Same thing with Justin Fields. There's so much new with Justin Fields. Like, I kind of harp on his decision-making, but also, like, if he stays in there, and I'm not sure he will, you should also expect it to get better over the course of a season. There's young offensive linemen, Zach Frazier, the center, responsible for a lot of different signals and getting guys lined up. And now James Daniels, who's the guy kind of walking him through that, is also not there. And so, yeah, I mean, I think in general, a lot of the areas where the Steelers are struggling right now are places where we should expect them to be better as the season goes on.
That's fair. Well, somebody who has been here and has been garnering a lot of attention, you mentioned the name Minkah Fitzpatrick, because he's now gone 17 games without getting an interception, getting a forced fumble, or even having a fumble recovery. Obviously, you said you have the expectation that he's going to be a better player, more impactful. Just in terms of, like, when I hear the word impactful, and this maybe isn't how you meant it, but a lot of people just expecting more splash, and like, he's playing fine. For the most part, he's been in the right spots. I don't think Sunday night was great necessarily. But what do you make of his game, and why do you have the optimism you do, just because he's been that level of player before?
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it is the Steelers pass rush has been kind of feast or famine, where like they're getting quick pressure a lot of time and they're just bringing the guy right down. And then there's been a lot of snaps where they're not getting pressure. They're not really blitzing a lot. But I think that's mostly been due to the kind of quarterbacks they're playing. Like, you don't really want to blitz guys like Joe Flacco and Dak Prescott. They're going to pick it apart. Like, you got to get there with four guys. And so I just think there hasn't been a lot of opportunities. Like, it would be one thing if he wasn't making splash, but he was dropping interceptions, or he was, missing assignments or things like that. Like, I just think he hasn't really gotten a lot of opportunities yet. And I think they'll come over the course of a season. Teams can't just continue to avoid a giant stretch in the middle of the field against the Steelers all year. Like, that's not going to work. And then I think some of the coverage disguises they're doing could use some fine tuning. I think that's causing some of the miscommunication, and I think it's also just made it a little bit more difficult on Minkah. They're putting him in like, the one thing they are definitely doing, they are getting out of him, is they're putting him in some really tough assignments. Like, you draw it up on paper and you're like, that's not even possible, but that's 39's job on this play, because we're double covering CD, but we're also rotating someone in the box against the run. And so here's this huge stretch of field. Have at it, 39. Like, I think you're not going to get a lot of splash when you're giving guys assignments like that, but I think they will eventually come. I do.
Well, to your point about not blitzing a ton, we've talked about the lack of depth that they've, kind of gone through at the outside linebacker spot. What they have on the edge this upcoming week, I mean, is this a week to maybe send more pressure than going against, we don't know, Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell, with what they have at their disposal right now with their pass rushers? Do you think this would be a week where they maybe, send 5+ more often than they have?
They're going to have to. I don't think they can devise a game plan this week that says, oh, 4 guys can get home. Also, whoever the Raiders play at quarterback is not going to be some guy that can stand back there and pick you apart against the blitz. It will be a guy who is a little bit more susceptible to being fooled, to being bamboozled, to getting off their game by putting additional pressure on them, especially if it's Aiden O'Connell. And so, yeah, I think it's just and the other part of that is, too, I think the Raiders have less guys that can beat you quick. I mean, I think Davante Adams is a really good receiver, but like, to me, he's more of a deep threat than like an underneath guy. Brock Bowers has made some people pay for leaving him open in the intermediate areas, but is not a guy who like is a quick twitch tight end like a Kelsey or an Njoku that is just going to smoke guys off the line. And so, like, if you blitz, like, you're inviting a quick throw. I'm not sure the Raiders' skill position guys are really best designed to take advantage of that. And so I just think this is a matchup in general where they would be blitzing more this week, but certainly I think with the injuries at the edge, they're going to have to.
The first name you mentioned,
or play more base defense, in which case you're rushing 5 every play, so you're not really blitzing, but you're bringing more pressure.
The first name you mentioned Jacoby Myers, I'm assuming, correct?
I did not mention Jacoby Myers. No.
Oh, well, Davante Adams, are you expecting him to still be on the Raiders and play in this game?
I don't know. Okay. I mean, I'm going to talk about him like he is.
I guess you should. I have
no expectation of when. Jacoby Myers is another guy, bigger receiver, goes up and gets the ball. Not like a guy you're worried about, like torching you with slants all day. Like it's not really his game.
Sure. Yeah. No, I agree. I just wanted to clarify there and make sure, because
I mean, I assume I guess you have that, I don't know. It would be very interesting to me what happens if like the Steelers, like, could there be? Let's talk about Davante Adams for a second. I'm really interested in this scenario. The Steelers and Raiders agree this week to a trade, but that he won't play for either team this week.
Yeah.
Like,
how does that work? You just don't process it until afterwards, or what?
Yeah, you just agree to it before the game and you process it after the game. And maybe the Steelers have to send the Raiders a check for half of his game check this week or something like that. I don't know.
And would that just be a handshake thing, or is that something that you can actually do within the?
Well, the Steelers paying the the Raiders would be hard. I don't know how that would work. They would have to find a way. Like they would have to. So the way they would have to do it is, they would have to like convert an appropriate percentage of Adams' salary into per game roster bonuses. And so then like it would basically like say he's owed, well, after this game, he'll be owed like 11 something million, right? So if they convert some of that salary to per game roster bonuses, then and move all those bonuses to after next week, then you could do it, right? That's the way you would have to do it. You'd have to change the structure of the contract. So he would like agree to a new contract with the Raiders on Thursday, and then the Steelers would trade for him on Monday. It's possible. Yeah, it's possible. It's interesting. That's what I want to happen. It could be really fun. Like, and then honestly, I want Davante Adams to just be like watching the game on like on Instagram Live, like just reacting to what happens, because that would be like CBS should get him in the, if that happens, CBS should get him in the booth. Like that would just be wonderful television. I want like a second feed with just Davante Adams watching this game if he's not playing it.
Instead of the Manning cast, right? Davante Adams cast. Alan, I want to get to one more thing here. It's another YouTube thing that we got. This comes from John Dad Papa. I like the name. I think it could be better, like John Dad Papa, grandfather, husband. Like that. Just go all the way with the name. Yeah. Always love the show, fellas. And the new background is sweet regarding blaming the coaching. Not a Tomlin fan nor a hater, but I have a theory. He's a great team builder, but a poor strategist. Examples: no strategy to replace Ben, no strategy to replace DJ, questionable strategy to develop a very young offensive line, and I fear he'll make a myopic decision at QB this year too. Thoughts? What a word to throw in there at the end, myopic.
You know, I think that's interesting. I think that 100% of the coach's job is to focus on this season. Any NFL coach that is worried about anything beyond this current season is either doing it wrong or going to get fired. One or the other.
Like Robert Saleh today.
Yeah. Like if you are not focused on this season as a coach, you are failing. That is the coach's job. It is the general manager's job to worry about what happens next. It is 100% of coaching to only worry about the season that is in front of you. There's no other way to do it. 30% of this team at least will not be here next year. 30% of the locker room does not care one bit about what happens to the 2025 Pittsburgh Steelers. They don't care. You cannot get buy-in for the future. You're not going to get it. Too much of the team turns over from year to year. The only thing you can get 100% buy-in from a team is this season. That's the only way you can do it. So, I mean, I generally agree. I think the Steelers as an organization have fallen short. I think the criticism about the post Big Ben plan is misguided. When you have Big Ben, you're trying to win with them. Like that's just the way it is. You figure that out when you don't have him anymore. Anything attempting to address it before then is just taking away assets that could have been used to try to get him one more Super Bowl ring. And it's not like they weren't close in 2020, like they were. And so I just think it's foolish to spend assets on the future when you have an aging Hall of Fame quarterback. The Deontay Johnson trade I've been very critical of, and I think we talked a lot about that. That I think that was a misread of the wide receiver market by Omar Khan. And then I talked about it this morning a lot and why the Steelers are in the position they are with the wide receivers. But what was the third thing there?
The offensive line, like the strategy to develop them.
I don't know. I don't have any specific quibbles with the Steelers and their young offensive linemen. I mean, the ones that are healthy are playing. I don't really know what more you want.
What do you make of, just because that kind of ties in, I guess, what do you make of the job that Pat Meyer's done?
I think Pat Meyer's fine. I don't think he's like one of the best offensive.
He's like a run-of-the-mill offensive line coach, right? I mean,
yeah. He's not like bad. He's just fine. I mean, he's there. There are 32 offensive line coaches, and he is one of them. I don't know. He's not a problem that I think like would be easily fixed. Like, it's not like you're going to just go find. Could you find a better offensive line coach? Yeah, probably. Yeah. Like, would it be easy? Yeah, no, probably not. That's kind of what I feel about it. I think if you want a cogent criticism of the coaching staff, I think you could say that there are probably too many of those guys on this coaching staff. I think there are a couple. Like, I think Aaron Curry is a really good swing at a young coach that I think is on the rise, that I think will move beyond being a position coach. I think there's a chance that Grady Brown could move beyond being a position coach and being like really good at their jobs. But outside of that, I think most of this coaching staff is kind of just guys. And so, like, if you want a criticism of Mike Tomlin there, and I think largely hiring assistant coaches has been his purview almost exclusively, I think that's reasonable. I think if you want to make that criticism, I also think it's too small, the coaching staff in general, and have said that for a while.
Talked about a lot.
And I don't think they spent enough money there, although I don't know if that's a Tomlin problem or a Rooney problem.
Sure. Right. Yeah, I agree. Grady Brown, that's a good shout. Somebody asked me who I thought was like the next, or I don't know about the next, but they're like the best position coach, and that was my answer. But Aaron Curry's a good shout too. I think it's between them.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I like Denzel Martin a lot too. I think they have a couple good young guys on that defensive staff, but I just think in general, it's a lot of older guys that are not really going places, and that's okay. Like, I don't think there are a lot of zeros on the coaching staff either. It's just a lot of guys.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Alan, you know the drill. Tell the people they can find you.
At @ASaunders_PGH on X. Did we get to everything? No, we have stuff left over for tomorrow again. Or did we get to everything?
That was everything I got. I got that last one in with the 28-minute mark. Yeah.
All right.
Tomlin stuff, third down defense, splash plays, 2 questions. We're good.
All right. @Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, and TikTok. PGH Steelers Now, SteelersNow.com. Use promo code Allen10 to get 10% off an annual subscription, $4 a month. Really need those. And like and subscribe to YouTube channel, hit the bell for notifications.
There you go. Oh, there is the last thing. It's related to the matchup, though. We can talk about the QB stuff more because kind of mentioned it. We don't know what the Raiders are doing. Also,
we did not talk about cubes.
Yeah, so we will definitely do that as the week goes on. As Alan said, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell here if you are on YouTube. Hit us in the comments as well. We've been loving the comments. We've been getting a ton of them, and we appreciate all the audience involvement that we've been getting. So do that if you are here on YouTube. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive. The same place you can find us on TikTok, Steelers Afternoon Drive. And then you can find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.